konnichiwa! It's everyone's favorite audio engineer, Manning! And today I have an important announcement to make. Geek Pulse Radio is proud to announce that it is now the Geek Pulse Radio Network, and we will soon feature podcasts that discuss everything from movies to gaming to sports to the latest news in entertainment. So strap yourselves in. The first person we're bringing into the fold is... Wait, what? Are you sure that's who it is? It's not a typo, right? We're really bringing him on? Okay. Oh, okay. The first person we're bringing into the fold is Matthew Chin-Quee. Think of Jonathan, but with a much more... Think of Jonathan Youngblood, but with much less energy and a deeper voice to boot. Now, I guess strap yourselves in, as I proudly introduce my friend, Matthew Chin-Quee, and Chin-Quee Chats, where he will discuss all things sports, movies, TV, video games, anything that pops into his mind that encompasses our Geek Pulse network. Take it away, Matthew.
Hello everybody and welcome to the latest episode of Chin-Quee Chats, the bite-sized podcast where we talk movies, sports, and everything in between. I am your host, Matthew Chin-Quee, and this week I have a very special guest with me. You know him from Schmo's No Show, know him from Collider, Mr. Robert Butler III, aka RB3. How you doing, man?
Thanks for having me on. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you for putting out the time and joining me on this podcast. I know that we both had a little bit of trouble with scheduling and all.
Yeah. I mean, of course, there's always gonna be a little hiccups, coming here now and there, but we good, we here, and I'm excited to talk movies with you. So,
yeah. Just for those who don't know you, can you give a little bit of background on how you're involved in the industry and kind of what you do?
Right. So I'm in film school right now. I study at USC, School of Cinematic Arts. I'm an intern for Schmo's now. I've been working there for a little over a year and a half now, I think, since April of 2016. So yeah, about a year and a half. And basically, just been through there. I've had the opportunities to go to events like Comic-Con or hang out with a lot of the Collider people whenever they need some extra hands. Or I do a lot of other things as well. Some of the things I'm not really allowed to talk about, just based on like NDAs I've had to sign in the past, but it's nothing like illegal or anything. It's more of just companies that I've worked for that they don't like, people don't want to know there's internships for, but it's just how some of Hollywood works, I think. And but beyond that point, I am. So that's kind of really the involvement that I have in a lot of the industry right now. It's mainly through Schmo's, especially in the little like film, Twitter, Facebook, forum circles, stuff like that. That's where I've kind of have a name for, so.
And that's really cool, just hearing that there's certain things that you can't talk about. And for me, I mean, I've obviously not had those sort of experiences, and just hearing that, it's like, wow, that's really cool. But for today's Cinema Chat segment, in honor of Detroit, which comes out this Friday, both RB3 and I, we're both minorities, or we're both people of color. We're not white. Mm-hmm. And there is in Hollywood, this is a very delicate situation for a lot of people. It's a point of contention. There is issues of diversity and whitewashing in Hollywood. So in honor of Detroit, which is a film that is heavily racially charged about real events involving, and this cast has an ethnically diverse cast, we would just like to talk about some of the issues, whether that be casting or already released films or films that are already coming out in the industry. So what I would like to start with is just this past 2 weeks at D23, we had the Aladdin casting, and before that we had some reports coming out that they were having trouble casting actors of of Middle Eastern ethnicity. Now, why do you think that it was so hard to find that? I mean, there's got to be thousands of actors out there who are looking for work who seemingly are good and can sing. Why do you think Disney was having such trouble, and why do you think it's so important that they cast someone that matches the actual Aladdin character?
Well, you're right. There's tons of actors, Middle Eastern actors of descent, actresses as well, who are trying to make it in this industry, who are trying, up and comers who can act, who can sing, who can dance. The problem is, obviously, is Disney, and Disney is looking to appeal to as many markets as possible, and they're looking to make as much money as possible. So a lot of the times, what kind of goes swept under the rug a lot of times when discussing Hollywood is mainly that a lot of these decisions are made by like computers and databases that determine a certain metric and calculation that has the most opportunities for money making. So, and casting, I know they had announced they wanted to cast unknown actors and actresses, but in reality, and those reports eventually came out, they were looking at people like Dave Patel or bigger name actors and actresses as well. I mean, they cast Naomi Scott, she's already a name in some circles as well. But the reason they have to do that is because they do want to go with unknowns, in particular to get a wider American appeal and a wider appeal to like the Eastern and Western European markets as well. Because honestly, movies are a little harder to sell overseas, even though the illusion is that a lot of the money is made overseas. They're also harder to sell overseas. So that's why the marketing budgets are getting bigger and bigger for these things. So as a long story short, I think that's kind of the problem. And because Hollywood hasn't been preconditioned to have enough people of color, enough Muslim actors, enough Middle Eastern actors and actresses, because there hasn't been enough that's been pre-programmed into the Hollywood system, it makes it tough to cast a name. So,
yeah, and I think that if I was in position, something that would bother me and really complicate the process is the fact that you're not sure if the film Aladdin itself can sell the movie overseas, and casting someone completely unknown, you don't know if that name will sell. So they are taking a big risk with the guy they sell. Like the fact that I mean, I can't even remember his name right now. All I know is that he's Canadian. Yay. But the fact that they're going with an unknown for Aladdin, but then going with someone she's not super big, but within certain circles, as you said, her name is recognizable, and I believe she is an up-and-coming star. And then with, of course, Will Smith, which is probably the biggest name on the cast, as the genie, as the characters and the role of importance start to progress, they get a little bit more famous. But they're really trying to push in the spotlight this unknown actor, which I think is really important, and they really achieved the best of both worlds with their casting, I think.
Right. And the thing is, for many years, and it kind of happened all the way through the 80s and 90s, 2000s, kind of died off recently, but it's the idea of a studio building and branding a star themselves. You know what I mean? Like, they're like, a lot of the times, if they're going to pick somebody out, they're going to pick somebody out who has all the trifectas, who they're going to groom, who they're going to put in the big movies. I mean, that was Will Smith. Basically, he was built. I think he's almost like the last big star that was built by the studios. Yeah. Maybe Dwayne Johnson as well. But Dwayne Johnson kind of had to push himself. He kind of had to work himself all the way up to the top. He was doing movie after movie after movie. He had to work himself out of contracts. But I mean, honestly, and now when they try and do it, people like Sam Worthington or Jai Courtney, they don't have necessarily like the acting ability to be the leading man star. Taylor Kitsch is another one. So, back in the day, I mean, that's all through the history of Hollywood, back from the early 20s up until recently. So, but that's the problem. There hasn't been like a big Middle Eastern star, and there used to be big Asian stars. There used to be Jackie Chan. There used to be Lucy Liu, Jet Li. I mean, all these big international stars that were doing American movies, but now we don't have any of that. So now that's why we keep running into issues of whitewashing and all, because that conversation wasn't happening before, because all the biggest stars were, so.
Yeah. And a lot of the backlash nowadays it also comes from big films like Cameron Crowe's Aloha, where they cast Emma Stone, who she's a great actress in her own right, but they cast her as an Asian woman or a half Asian woman, and a lot of people were just like, "What on earth are you doing?" And then there's also big things. I remember there's a big backlash with Pan, with Rooney Mara being cast as a Native American woman, and it goes on. Now Disney's running into the same problem again with Mulan. Now that movie has been moved back, and I think the problem is with this one is that you can't just cast any random Asians. You have to cast someone of Chinese descent. How important do you think it is of casting someone Chinese, or is that too much of a task for the studios to sell a film, because it would essentially almost be picking all unknowns?
Right. No, I mean, and again, I don't know why American film studios have this whole system, but again, they're trying to play to markets, like more Western markets. So even though China is technically the biggest box office draw right now, it should be pretty easy to plug a star out of China. Like I'm not exactly sure if her name, I believe Boo Boo Jin or something like that, who was in X-Men Days of Future. I believe she's a Chinese star, if I'm not mistaken. But she's one of the biggest stars in the world. But she doesn't get a lot of American parts because, quite frankly, she doesn't have like a Western appeal. She doesn't speak like the best English, I guess. She barely had any words in Days of Future Past. And that's not even to mention how many unknown actresses, stars who are here in Hollywood. I mean, I could give you 10 actresses who I know personally who are like in college with me, who are vying for roles. And to say that there aren't enough people for the opportunity is kind of bullshit. But like, there is plenty of opportunity to pick up and pick different people to explore and to grow and to thrive in this industry, but there's not the effort being put forth into that. So
yeah, just as a fact check, that what the actress in Days of Future Past is Fan Bingbing, and she is huge in China. She's most people in America and North America would just recognize her as Blink from Days of Future Past. But do you think that that Disney is ready to take that leap and just go, screw it, we're casting all unknowns and selling Mulan? Because Mulan is one of the biggest animated films they've ever made, and just selling it on Mulan's name.
Right. No, I think everything these days don't even need really a star to sell, and that's why I think it's the perfect climate to start building up international stars, because frankly, people aren't going to the movies because this actor's in it and that actor's in it. We've seen time after time big movies bombing with big names. Tom Cruise with The Mummy recently, The Rock with Baywatch. And, so again, it's the properties that are selling these franchises. That's why you could see something like Star Wars casting Daisy Ridley, John Boyega, who's only been in a couple of movies beforehand. Oscar Isaac was a bit of a bigger name, but even still,
he was more of an indie star.
Exactly, more of an indie star, exactly, and Donald Gleason. So that's why you could start seeing Star Wars cast those kind of actors and still make $2 billion worldwide. It's not necessarily a star; it's the property. So if you put unknown actors and breed them up through these properties, imagine the kind of success you'll have in making more original, independent, not even independent, but more original storytelling from the perspective of different filmmakers, because there are a wider variety of stars to be in these movies. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So,
yeah, for someone who my brothers are pretty young, and I grew up kind of seeing it's Jackie Chan as the only Asian celebrity or actor to really look up to. This is something that I think is really important, that building up and taking that chance of casting those unknowns and building them up into stars, because you did talk about the box office power of the international audience, and it's becoming more and more abundantly clear. Like China saved Pacific Rim, and now we're getting a Pacific Rim 2 just because of China and the overseas markets. So I truly believe that that if you can build up a star from the Mulan, from a Mulan name, or from any name, even it could be Middle Eastern, from Aladdin, that can not only, for lack of a better phrase, appease audiences who are looking for more diversity in Hollywood, but it can also translate into big box office gains, which really just it's a win-win for everybody.
Right, exactly.
So one other question in relation to Detroit, because this does look like a really great movie, and I'm not sure if you've heard any ramblings about it, but the Oscar chances and the whole controversy these past few years with the Oscars being #Oscars so white, and a lot of people boycotting them, and high profile actors such as Jada Pinkett Smith coming out and saying that that the Oscars are rigged in favor of white people, to Chris Rock's monologue a few years ago about the racial tensions, or even this year a film that many people are still considering the best film of the year, even though we're 7 months into the year, Get Out. So what do you think about the whole the racial tensions within the Academy and revolving around the Oscars?
Well, I think the Academy took a lot of the criticisms that were directed at them and found a way to incorporate a lot more diversity into their regimen. I mean, it's not an extreme amount, but having that conversation allowed for the opportunity for something like Moonlight to sneak up and win Best Picture and stuff like that. So I think it's cool. I mean, I'm very much looking forward to Detroit. Obviously, they have Academy Award winning Catherine Bigelow, who's the first woman to win an Academy Award, right, for Best Director.
Yeah.
Mark Bowles directing it as well. I mean, I'm writing it as well. So, and I'm hearing nothing but positive things about it. It's going to have a big Oscar campaign because a movie like this, it came out around the same time that not Zero Dark 30, The Hurt Locker. The Hurt Locker came out back in around the same time as this one's coming out. So they have a whole plan. They have a whole campaign put around this, and I think especially with stars like John Boyega, especially with the subject matter too of police brutality, it allows for an open conversation that's just going to carry it through for the rest of the award season. Now, in terms of the whole Oscar so white thing, I was a big champion of that when it was happening. Those couple of years, like, yo, what do you what's the Academy's problem? Why is there not the representation? And when you look at the facts, people want to skew the numbers however way they want to skew it. Like, they'll say in the past 20 or so years, actually like 13.5% of the winners have been African American, which equals up the statistics. But that's, you're taking a specific, we look at the overall statistics, and this is no bullshit. If you look at all the statistics, count by hand, every minority who has ever won an Academy Award ever, it's only 5% of all time, and that's only looking at acting. That's not even a mention if you take into account all the other fields of the filmmaking experience. So 5%, and with Moonlight performing the way it did, it's an indicator of change. But I don't know to what extent, given the different plethora of films they're willing to recognize. Again, I think a lot of people pointed towards the Oscar so white thing being only about like black actors and whatnot, and that's why you saw also like Hidden Figures and Fences get big nominations as well. But I think a bigger part of that whole movement is getting better representation of every race and every culture in film. I
completely agree.
More. So it's not just, I think, of course, African Americans are overcoming that hurdle, but even to a greater extent, Asian Americans are facing that hurdle. Asian writers and directors and producers are facing that. Latinos, Hispanics, Mexican American directors, stuff like that. I mean, obviously we've seen winners come and go, like Alfonso Cuarón and Ang Lee, and maybe from the African American perspective, John Singleton or
even Denzel.
Denzel, yeah, exactly. Like we've seen artists like that prevail and overcome, but I'm fascinated to see a more broader representation of the actual world that we live in. But again, that comes back to having Hollywood start representing, because the Academy Awards is ran by the studios. So it's an award show created by 20th Century Fox back in 1928. to award themselves for movies. So, and that's what it's always going to be. But it's not until Hollywood starts making those changes in the films they make are we going to see something change.
Yeah, and part of me is really, really worried. And this is worst case scenario that last year was a severe overcorrection, and they're just going to go right back to where they were 2 years ago. And I was really glad that Moonlight won Best Picture, and that there were so many African American actors and just representation in the Oscars. But I'd like to see this continue going forward, because I'm not sure if it's going to remain that way from now on. And there are plenty of opportunities this year to nominate diverse members of the Academy, and not just diverse in terms of race, but also with women. And that's a whole other discussion. But you have names like Patty Jenkins and Catherine Bigelow, of course, being thrown their name in the hat, and Ava DuVernay, who was the subject of being left out in. I believe she was left out in 2015 for Selma.
Yes, yes, absolutely.
And that was one of the biggest snubs, in my opinion, where you can point to the Academy like, I don't know what you were thinking here. Yeah, I just hope that the Academy they recognize, and they have come out and said that they recognize that there's a problem, but that they are actively trying to do something and not just trying to band-aid it, for lack of a better phrase.
Right, and it's small steps they could take. Like, for example, something like The Big Sick is written by Camille. If you give that a screenplay nomination or something, that carries a long way in terms of like the reception of a movie or something like that. Or obviously there's been news lately of a Wonder Woman Oscar campaign ramping up. And again, that would be a big step and advancement for women directors, especially someone like Patty Jenkins, who literally directed a Best Actress winner and had to wait for like 12 or 13 years to make another movie, who doing television and whatnot. So.
Yeah, and going back to the point where you're talking about not just African-American actors of Hispanic or Asian descent, and I agree that, and this isn't to completely undermine struggles of the African American community, or in the industry and just overall, but a lot of the other races are overlooked in terms of the film industry and the Academy, and that's something that I would really like to see them push forward in the future. And like you said, it's small steps. I'm not looking for something to be fixed completely overnight, but as long as they are continuing to acknowledge and make changes here and there, I think that's a step in the right direction, because you can never fix something immediately, but that as long as we get some positivity.
Right, exactly. And going back to your point of, we see a lot of big name African American stars that have transcended, like a subculture, not a subculture, but like a smaller degree of celebrity to move forward into like the bigger echelons of like Idris Elba. He started off doing like Tyler Perry movies and stuff like that, but now he's like in the conversation for James Bond. And I think African Americans have, since we've had the opportunity to be represented in film for so long, that we've had stars like Sidney Poitier, to Eddie Murphy, to Denzel, to Will Smith, to now like Donald Glover or something like that. So, we've had those opportunities. Now I think it's a chance for like other coaches to have those opportunities as well. Because like I said, man, I remember when I was a kid, Lucy Liu was like the shit. Everybody knew like Lucy Liu. If she was in a movie, we had to go see that. But yeah, it's like, now what happened? We don't have like another great Asian American action star like that we used to, or same thing like we talked about Jackie Chan. And I think really, for Hispanic actors, there's always gonna be like this typecasting, which I think is a greater problem that we have in our American society of typecasting as like drug dealers, like all this stuff. Same thing with some of the Asian coaches as well, being typecasted,
or Middle Eastern actors who are. I've read a report where it was from an anonymous Middle Eastern actor who said he is tired of every audition going in and he has to be the terrorist every single time.
Right. And there's even one actor from I can't remember his exact name, who's Mexican American, but literally all of his castings are like the same name.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, like he was in like Training Day and like a whole bunch of different movies, literally the exact same name, like playing the exact same character. And it's like, yeah, I feel like the only actor now who's been able to transcend a lot of that, like Hispanic wise, is Oscar Isaac. I think he's been fortunate enough to be able to transcend a lot of that. But even still, I mean, he's not really like the biggest star. And I would love to see like Antonio Banderas when I was a kid. Again, back then, Antonio Banderas was somebody who was bred to build up, and he was a megastar. And now we don't have another star like that. So
yeah, and as we both said before, this isn't something that's gonna be fixed overnight. But with small steps and with little changes here and there, with introducing someone through a platform such as Mulan or such as Aladdin, hopefully these things can continue to be fixed in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's where Hollywood is headed. So I'm hoping for the best.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good place to stem the discussion. Obviously, this is a subject that is very sensitive for a lot of people, and a lot of people are very passionate about. But we're going to take a quick break. This actually ends the cinema chat. We're going to take a quick break and come back in the free chat to talk about Kyrie Irving and his whole debacle in the NBA. We'll be right back. And we are back for the free chat segment, still with RB3 from Schmoes. But instead of talking about movies, we're going to be talking about the NBA, something that we are both pretty passionate about and both follow. And there's been a bit of news that has kind of shocked the NBA community, came out of almost nowhere in the past week, and it involves one of the game's biggest stars right now. Kyrie Irving has seemingly just out of the blue said, I want to be traded. I don't want to be in the Cleveland Cavaliers anymore. What do you think about this?
It's nuts, man. I mean, Kyrie, I thought he was like LeBron's homeboy, like they were gonna ride or die together, you know. But nah, man. Now I'm hearing from the locker room, LeBron wants to fight him and all this kind of stuff. all I'm really concerned about is where he's gonna end up. And look, I know there's not a lot of room on the Lakers contract right now, but come on over to LA, baby. We need a little help. But no, I do. You know, a lot of the rumors are talking about the Knicks, you know, trading for Carmelo. Obviously, you had that big controversy with Phil Jackson saying that he wasn't the best fit there, and maybe Phil Jackson had a point. Maybe the brass over at the Knicks think so as well. So maybe, I don't know. And obviously, he had offers from other places like the Suns, the Timberwolves. I'm curious to see where he lands.
I think that if the Timberwolves can find space, I think that he'd be a really good fit on the team, because right now, I mean, they just traded for Jimmy Butler. They're looking to extend Wiggins, but they still need shooting, and Kyrie Irving will provide that. The only problem is they just signed Jeff Teague, and they can't trade him until December, and I don't know what their issue with cap space is, but if they could get Kyrie, that'd be a huge boost for them.
Right.
There's also the Suns are in contention, but I'm hearing a lot of things that because Kyrie has only 2 years left on his contract, and the Suns aren't really able to commit to kind of building towards a championship in the next 2 years. I don't know if they'll be able to keep Kyrie, and that doesn't honestly seem like something that would be all that viable. So right now, just in my opinion, I think he actually might stay in Cleveland, but that might be something bad for the locker room if everything that we're hearing is true.
Right. And honestly, I think if you're unhappy on the team, I think it's just about time to start letting players go, because honestly, I'm excited. I was looking forward to seeing Kyrie with LeBron, with Iman Shepherd, with all these guys who I'm big fans of. I was excited to see them carry on and play for another championship, like continue the rivalry, you know. But the Warriors are pretty much holding it down, holding it intact. I don't know if LeBron can carry the Cavaliers for a whole nother season by himself. I think that if Kyrie is leaving, I think this will be like the last bout of LeBron James we see in Cleveland, where he moves on again to a bigger market. And I don't know. One of the big rumors is that Miami Heat's looking at Kyrie, so maybe Kyrie hops to the Heat, LeBron hops back. You never know.
That would be something. As a Raptors fan, I know I dealt with back in the day. I was young, but I remember watching it that last year with Vince Carter, where he wanted to be traded, and it was not fun to watch because he had just given up on the team. And I'm not exactly cheering for Cleveland, but I would feel for them if they aren't able to trade Kyrie and he's not putting in the effort. That is not fun to watch. I can speak from experience. It's really demoralizing, and you just don't want to watch the games anymore because your players aren't giving their all.
All right.
So I'm, for Cleveland's sake and personally for my sake, because if Kyrie gets traded, that means the Raptors they have the East. It clears up a little bit for them, but just for their sake, I hope he gets traded.
Yeah, I mean, well, I'm not gonna lie to you, man. The East has been cleared up for a long time.
That's true.
I mean, the way Cleveland has been going, and maybe this allows for a more open market Eastern Conference with Kyrie leaving. Because honestly, man, it's been like for the past few years, you can't shake anybody else. I mean, teams are like winning 36 games and making the playoffs on the Eastern Conference. Like, come on, man. The West has got it tough. Like, the West got it pretty tough. But I'm excited. I want to see how this shakes up the entire league, because according to, the data I was looking at earlier, if he goes to Knicks, the Knicks' projected wins or like percentages jumps like to a pretty significant amount. And whereas dumping Carmelo Anthony and whoever else they have to get rid of, because I'm assuming it'll have to be like a multiplayer deal. That's right. It wouldn't just be an even like.
No, they're not trading one for one, I don't think.
Right, absolutely. So especially with somebody like Kyrie. So I don't know. I'd be down to see him come to the Suns. Just he'll be a little closer to the West Coast.
Yeah. Honestly, as long as he's out of the Eastern Conference, I'm a happy camper. But like you said, there was, I don't know if you watch the Bleacher Report's Game of Zones thing, but they had an episode where it was LeBron. He literally, every single year, he has been in the East, and he's won the East, whatever team he's on. And it just seems that when you think you've got him, even last year when the Cavs went on kind of a losing streak at the end of the season, you were like, is LeBron choking? And then playoffs hit, and it's like, oh no, he was just playing around with us. And when this happens every year, where LeBron, it seems like he's not playing his hardest, and then playoffs come, and it's a whole other beast, and he's just on another level.
Right.
And while we were talking about trading, you had mentioned Carmelo Anthony. Now, he said that he wanted to be traded to the Houston Rockets, and it almost seemed like a sure deal a few days ago, and now things are kind of up in the air because of Kyrie. And now you hear stuff like the Blazers are in play, or maybe even the Thunder. What do you think about him also leaving the Eastern Conference and going somewhere else?
Again, if Carmelo want to come to the Lakers,
you guys got Lonzo Ball. I think you guys are okay for now.
Hey, my boy Lonzo, MVP, Summer League. I only played 6 games.
That first game, I remember everybody was just knee-jerk reaction. It's like, oh my god, he's gonna wash up, and the next game he drops like a triple-double, and then he drops another one, and everyone's like, okay, maybe this kid is the real deal.
Right, I think what it was, man, I think that was all a marketing play, man. Him and his father are genius. Because that first game, he wore his $500 shoes, the balls or whatever. He sucked. And then the next like 8 games, he was just wearing like different shoes. He wore a different shoe like almost every night. And then look at him, he's falling out. So now those big companies, Nikes and Adidas, Pumas, they're knocking at their door. They're offering money. So I think I think that was well played business strategy, and I'm excited to see what the big baller brand has in store for Los Angeles Lakers.
Straight up, I think that these guys, the ball family, they've been trolling everybody for the last 7 months. They know that what they were doing. They know they're drumming up publicity for no apparent reason other than just to hype up that brand, because you would think that just a casual fan would come in, they hear all this hype about Lonzo Ball, you would think that he was the number 1 overall draft pick. He's the number 2, but he is already one of the biggest players in the NBA. He hasn't even played a regular season game.
Right. He's on the tip of everybody's tongue. And now, because of Lonzo being so great, now all you're seeing is people following the second brother. I can't remember his name off back, and even like the youngest one, LaMelo Ball. Like literally, a friend of mine was like, "Yo, I want to go out to this game to see LaMelo Ball play."
Yeah.
Man. Like, damn, he's only in high school. So again, like he's really built. Again, LeVar and the Ball family, they have a whole brand that they built. And I want to see this carried out. I want to see if all the brothers are going to play for UCLA, then for the Lakers in that order. I want to see where that goes.
That would be crazy. And a lot of people aren't LeVar Ball fans, and I understand that because he said some crazy stuff before. But when it comes down to it, I think that he's honestly just a guy who loves his kids and wants the best for them. And the kids know what he's doing, and he has not the permission per se, but he has let them know that he's going to be doing all these crazy antics, like going onto WWE Raw, taking off his shirt and doing whatever the hell he was doing on stage there. Right. But I think that he knows what he's doing, and I have to give him a little bit of respect for that. Right.
And I'm excited to see where Magic takes this Lakers franchise now that we have a star like Lonzo there. Obviously, with Magic, I mean, you could argue his involvement in the Dodgers is being the owner versus, being the actual GM and whatnot, but he did help resurrect the Dodgers franchise on the baseball side, and I'm hoping he's going to do the same for the Lakers. So far, it's looking good, and but like I said, Kyrie, Carmelo, have a conversation with old Magic. We can make something work out.
You guys are getting Paul George next year, so
George,
don't get too greedy.
Paul George, I'm praying. Come on, Paul George.
You're going for Paul George. You're going for LeBron. You're going for everybody.
Yeah, everybody just come to Los Angeles Lakers. Storied history.
That's the last. It's just the last thing I want is the Lakers to get Lakers fans to get their mojo back after these next few years. I mean, I'm happy for you guys, but I could do without the, in the Kobe era where it was like 07 to whatever 2010 where it was all Lakers all the time, but that's
right.
coming from a salty Raptors fan, so.
Kobe scored that 81 on you guys.
I know that, and I don't ever like hearing that. Anytime you hear Kobe, it's like, remember that time he dropped 81 on the Raptors and we couldn't do anything? Nope, that game never happened in my eyes.
I remember actually watching that too, so that's one of my fondest memories right there.
Well, that actually ends our free chat segment on a somewhat happy note for RB3 and a really embarrassing note for me. It was great having you on. It was great having you on as a guest. I want to thank you again for doing this. Where can the people find you, man?
It was a pleasure being on. Thanks for inviting me. You can find me on Twitter at RB3Schmoes, Instagram as well. My YouTube channel, Robert Butler III, and I started my own podcast with some of my high school friends where we just talk about like high school antics and whatnot, college, whatnot. It's called The Lucky Scholars. So search that up on YouTube and SoundCloud. And yeah, so.
That actually sounds really interesting. I didn't even know you started that, so I will for sure check that out. You guys know where to find me. Everything's in the description, but just as a reminder, I had just set up a new Twitter just solely dedicated to this podcast. That's CQ_chats, or you can follow me on my personal Twitter, mchinquee96. Until next time, I'll chat with you guys next week.